difficult time watching this, actually, and I've worked within this movement in the past 5 years, and for the last almost 10 years I've worked in the movement against violence against women, and watching this film, I could barely breathe, to tell you the truth. I couldn't believe the things that I was seeing and the images that I was seeing. So it's just an amazing film. I think that now it's working. I think that for someone that has actually worked on these issues in the last couple of years, that it gives you a great synopsis on the different aspects of this crime. So the pimps, the prostitutes, the survivors, the Johns, the law enforcement, social service workers, healthcare professionals. It gives you a great gamut of sort of, who's involved or who has a stake in this sort of crime. So actually, right now, we're going to actually move to a sort of a debrief period, if some of you can stay. And I just want to apologize for earlier, and it was a good thing that we were oversold, and we have a lot of people in New Hampshire that are actually interested in this issue, but unfortunately we were a little delayed in starting, so I'm going to just apologize to you. I would like to also now just reintroduce Tim from the film, and he's going to tell you just a little bit about what you can do next.
For staying and hanging out through the film. We realize it's a lot of information to take in, a lot of heavy information, and we didn't share it so that you would be overwhelmed, but we want to share it so that you know, and so that you all can be empowered to do something. So as you all leave, at our table, you'll see in the lobby, we have some cards. They're take action cards, and they show you 5 different ways that you can act out regarding this issue. Also, additionally, we have a table of merchandise, and you saw in the film Streetlight in Phoenix, and 75% of the sales from merchandise at our table goes towards helping Streetlight get their restoration home functioning. And then also there's a donations box that you can contribute to help keep our team on the road to keep sharing this in the rest of the U.S. So again, thank you all for coming out, and our team will be in the back, and we'd love to hang out and talk and see if we can answer any questions you might have. So thanks again.
Great. So, I'm sure you thought throughout the movie, is this even really happening in New Hampshire? I would say that this is the #1 question that I get all the time. Is this even a problem in New Hampshire? Usually people associate human trafficking or sexual exploitation with people who live in poor countries other than the United States. And I'm here to tell you that it is 100% without a doubt a problem here in New Hampshire. Can we quantify it? We can't. But we certainly have anecdotal stories, working with our victim advocates, healthcare professionals, law enforcement. In fact, we had one of the biggest law enforcement trainings throughout the state just last year, and I can tell you that I heard over and over and over again by our law enforcement, local, county, state police. They said after an 8-hour training of learning about human trafficking, they said, yeah, now that I think about it and think about the stops that I've made, I think that that was human trafficking. I think that there was something much larger than what was going on. Oftentimes this crime presents itself as a different crime, so it presents itself as, say, child abuse and neglect, sexual assault, domestic violence, but I'm telling you, if you peel away the layers, you'll see that it could be a much bigger problem in the state. Also, we all know, New Hampshire residents, we live in a very rural state, so this is where this crime often flourishes, tucked away in small hidden streets, rural neighborhoods. And so I really think that it is happening. I think by the very nature of the crime, it's very much hidden, and we have a hard time identifying it. So what have we done in New Hampshire? Real briefly, I tell you. In session year 2007, we created a legislative commission to study human trafficking, sexual and labor exploitation in the state. This commission, this passed as a bill into law. Commission was legislatively created. This commission was made up of law enforcement, victim advocates like myself, Mark Zuckerman, Representative Suzanne Harvey, who's here tonight, and she chaired the commission. And so we met for a year, and we studied this issue, and we figured out that no, we couldn't quantify the problem in New Hampshire, but we certainly found stories and information that was occurring in our state. And so we met for a year, and we produced this report right here. You may have seen it on the table. It's called The Hidden Problem of Human Trafficking Addressing Modern Day Slavery in New Hampshire. This is electronically on our website. I would urge you to go to our website and maybe find this as a PDF. Also outside on the table, there's a sign-up sheet for you to sign up. I can email this to you if you'd like to read it. It was produced in 2008, so it is somewhat outdated, but it does have some great statistics in what trafficking may look like in New Hampshire. So we produced this report. Within this report, we had several recommendations. One of the recommendations was to make trafficking, human trafficking, a criminal offense in the state. While we had federal law, which Mark will talk about, we needed a state law. And so we produced a state law. We drafted it, worked with all the key stakeholders, pushed it through, advocated for it in session year 2009, and so it is now a Class A felony to hire or recruit somebody for labor or sexual exploitation in New Hampshire with enhanced penalties for trafficking someone under the age of 18. And so if we were ever to come across a case in the state, we can now decide whether or not we're going to use the state statute or the federal statute, and whatever the situation is, we can then apply it to that. So after several years of legislative successes, I was then approached by an organization called Project Reach, and they're a trauma-informed, service-based, out of Boston, Massachusetts, specific trafficking organization, and they got a grant at the federal level, and they wanted to create what was called the New England Coalition Against Trafficking. And this New England Coalition was made up of 5 participating states in our New England area, and New Hampshire was one of them, and I ended up being state coordinator. I'm telling you, I'm a team of one, okay, in this state. I've been working on this for a very long time. So we met for 2 years, and it was the same type of people that met on the commission, and again, it was just the key stakeholders in the state, and we figured out and tried to identify loopholes and what we needed to do, and so we chose to really focus our efforts on raising awareness. That was the largest law enforcement training throughout the state, the 8-hour police standards and training approved police academy here in New Hampshire training. So over 100 of our New Hampshire's law enforcement were trained on human trafficking, which was really, really awesome. So a lot of successes came as a result of that project. We just ended that project this past spring, and so really, you know, we're doing the work little by little, but we're doing things like this, and we're gathering people who clearly you are really interested in this issue, and so really, again, we're doing the work little by little, but this is sort of, you know, having things like this are a step in the right direction for sure. So I will be on hand. I'm going to hand the mic over now to Assistant U.S. Attorney Mark Zuckerman, who will talk to you a little bit about what's happening on the federal side.
Thanks. Good evening, and thank you very much for coming to this. This is the first time I've seen the film, and it is such a work of honesty. It conveys what I have tried to communicate in trainings and in speaking to groups for years now in a way that I don't think any other medium has, because what you saw there is what I hear from victims when I interview them. What you saw there is what I hear from perpetrators when we finally get them in custody and have a chance to sit down and talk to them about what did you do and how did you do it. And the bottom line is, this is a criminal enterprise that's driven by greed. Money is what drives it, and the goal is to make money off the backs of other people, either by having them bend them in forced labor or having them lie on them in the sex trade. That's the motivation, and it is a huge, huge piece of organized crime. Not necessarily the mafia, not necessarily those stereotypes, but it is completely organized. There is a money trail, as you heard in the film. There's retail, there's wholesale, and that's what drives it. It's also very hard to detect. Although it's out there in the open, it's simultaneously underground. I guess my message to you, more than anything else, I can talk about prosecutorial statistics and everything, but I'll tell you honestly, as much as we try to prosecute these cases, they're very hard to prosecute. It takes a long time to put a case together. And when you start comparing the number of victims out there on the street to the number of prosecutions, there's just no comparison. I mean, I think we've had about 80 or so prosecutions successfully in the last year or so in sex trafficking across the country. That's a great statistic because we've been doing this now for 10 years. The Trafficking Victim Protection Act, which was first passed on October 28th of 2000, is only about 11 years old. That's how long the federal government, anyway, has recognized this modern form of slavery, and it has had laws in place to combat it. But I can tell you, as somebody who's prosecuted human trafficking cases, they're very hard to put together. The second human trafficking case that was tried in the country was tried here in New Hampshire. I had the opportunity to be one of the lawyers who tried that case. That was a forced labor case, not a sex trafficking case, but it nevertheless points out the global reach of the problem and how much of it is right here. That case, in a nutshell, happened in Litchfield, involved some workers from Jamaica and a domestic tree cutting business in Litchfield, where the owners of the business traveled over to Jamaica and recruited workers to come back here and work in their business. They did that over 2 years, 1999 and 2000. Long story short, once those men got here, they found out they weren't getting paid anywhere near what they were told they were going to get paid. They were told they were going to be given housing. Their housing was literally a tool shed in the owner's backyard. What happened to them was exactly what you heard happening to the sex trafficking victims in this film. The unholy trinity, if you will, of human trafficking: force, fraud, and coercion. They were completely dependent on the people who brought them over here to work for life's necessities. The roof, such as it was over their heads, whatever food they had, whatever clothing they had on their backs, the constant threat that will turn you into the authorities if you run off, completely keeping them under control and under their thumb. That's a theme, whether it's sex trafficking or whether it's forced labor, that you see running throughout these types of cases. I could go on, as I'm sure you'd be shocked to hear that I could just go on and on about this. But let me leave with two messages. The first is, law enforcement can continue to try to ferret out these crimes and continue to prosecute them. But what we need to do as a society is to out them and hold them up to the light of day. Sex trafficking is going on in our communities. It's going on in Manchester, it's going on in Concord, it's going on in the rural communities. If you see activity on the street or around you, it just doesn't look right. You see somebody who appears to be a young girl walking into a building and cars lining up at strange hours of the day, or a parade of people that seem to be coming in and out. Or you're in an apartment building and there's an apartment that, for all intents and purposes, appears to be vacant, but there's foot traffic going in and out. And an alarm bell's going off in your head and you're thinking, that looks strange, but I don't know what to make of it. Don't suppress that feeling. Pick up the phone and call the police. If the police don't seem responsive, and I think at this point many of them will, because through the efforts of Jen and myself and others, we've done a tremendous amount of training over the last several years with law enforcement in New Hampshire. Those alarm bells will be going off for them. But I'll tell you this, if you don't know who to call, if you don't know what to make of it, call me. I'm at the U.S. Attorney's Office. My name's Mark Zuckerman.
He's going to give you his cell phone now.
That I won't do. But call the office, ask to talk to me. I will put you in touch with the right people. I will get in touch with the right people. Because ultimately, the way we stop this problem is by not tolerating it as a community and as a society. And when you shine the light of day on the people who are buying sex from minors, who are buying sex from those who are coerced and forced into that life, they're going to stop doing it. Because they want to operate in the shadows. They don't want to operate out in the open. My second message, and this is why I'm so gratified for what the makers of this film have done. is we need to help the victims. One of the frustrations I have as a prosecutor is trying to, first, help a victim understand that, in fact, that's what they are, particularly if we're talking about a minor who thinks that they're liberated. They're making a free choice. They're doing this of their own free will. Their John is really their friend, their protector, and the people with the badges and the guns and the ties are the bad guys. And help them understand that there's another life. There's another way to look at the world. The services that are being provided in Phoenix and other places, we need more of. I know that's talking about spending money and talking about social programs. But frankly, prosecuting the offenders in the end doesn't really help the victims. What helps them is giving them the help to find that there's another way, that they can make something else of themselves, that there's another way to look at the world, that they are not just a commodity, that the rest of the world isn't out there just to get whatever they can from them. So again, we as a society need to help lift up those folks. And my message is, try to find a way to do that. It's an ongoing, constant challenge, but if we all come together, we can address those issues, we can help those folks, and we can squelch this issue. Thanks very much.
As Suzanne comes down here, former Representative Suzanne Harvey, I wanted to also point out to you that on the table we have these nice little handy-dandy cards. And on one side it's detecting human trafficking in New Hampshire, and it gives you some red flags. On the other side there's some numbers to call. And so this is what happened, this is what we produced for the law enforcement training, but it was actually made for many disciplines for people like you to contact the, say, National Human Trafficking Hotline. I work very closely with the National Human Trafficking Hotline, where we have some type of temporary protocols in place, thanks to Mark and the help of Colonel Quinn from the state police. And so I urge you to take as many of these as you want. If they're gone, please contact me. I will send them to you. I have a lot of them. I want them all throughout the state. And I think that after the law enforcement training, 10 days after the law enforcement training, these numbers were used, and there was a potential victim of human trafficking found in the Seacoast area. So it works, and I want you to have them. So they're outside on the table. And I'd like to introduce.
How can people get a hold of you?
People can get a hold of me. My name is Jennifer Drayton. I'm from the coalition. So I have my contact information is actually out there on the table. And I'm obviously around and have cards on me if you'd like a card, and somehow we can connect. I'd now like to introduce former Representative Suzanne Harvey, who was the prime sponsor of the New Hampshire legislation.
Thanks, Jen. Thank you all for being here and for caring about the issue. I was in the House for 6 years, and I must say that working on this issue with Jen and many others was the highlight and the most gratifying part of those 6 years, learning about trafficking and trying to do something in New Hampshire about it. How it all started was there was a bill to form the commission to study trafficking in New Hampshire. I ended up being a co-sponsor of the bill. There were senators and House members co-sponsoring it. It did pass. It became a commission, and I became the chair of it. Jen was on it, one of our most hardworking members. And the purpose of the commission was to really take a look, number one, understand trafficking, try to define it. Obviously, there's a federal law that defines it. And then you said, well, why do the states get involved? That was a big question for us. Should the states get involved? Because there was a federal law against human trafficking. And we were all actually in consensus about this, that the feds can't be everywhere. Their eyes and ears can't be everywhere. So the states started to step up, and we thought, well, New Hampshire should too. And our work was to understand trafficking, to try to get a handle on the extent of trafficking in the state, and then to make a report to the rest of the legislature about it and to decide whether or not we wanted to come forward with a state law and make it a felony in the state. And we spent many months on it. The best thing to me was that we had a true commission of stakeholders involved. Anyone who had any stake in either the perpetrator or the victim of trafficking was on that commission. Every state agency, every state organization, some of the churches were involved, legislators. We really had an excellent commission, and everyone participated. We invited speakers to come and educate us about it, and ultimately Jen wrote the draft of the report. We all looked at it, we all added to it. She also wrote the first draft of the bill, and I became the prime sponsor of the bill making it a felony. It was very important to me to get members of both the House and the Senate from both sides of the aisle to co-sponsor it and to really make this a state effort in the legislature. So we finally had a bill. People started reading the content of it, and a couple of voices raised their hands and said, wait a minute, I don't like this. And we all went, what? What do you mean you don't, what can't you like about it? This is a very serious issue. And it turned out that there were a couple of people who were concerned about the forfeiture, the way it was worded about forfeiting, and afraid that it gave the state too much power, judges and law enforcement. Although the words were taken pretty much from our drug statutes to begin with, so it was nothing new. And they were concerned, there was a couple of concerns about, well, what if my teenage son accuses me of trafficking because I make him mow the lawn on the weekend? And we were going, oh my gosh, you know. So
This is true.
yeah, it's true. And the last thing we wanted was a floor fight in the House or the Senate. And we knew that there were people who were willing to wage this fight if we didn't fix their concerns. So we went back to the Attorney General's office, thanks to Anne, I saw you a minute ago, and we met with these people who had concerns. We addressed them, we tweaked the language, we had an amendment, we brought it to the floor. It passed overwhelmingly. It passed overwhelmingly in the Senate, thanks to Sylvia and her crew. And now, obviously, it's a felony, a Class A felony in New Hampshire with extended years if you're trafficking a minor. The other thing is that it became obvious that law enforcement and other first responders to emergencies needed to get educated, and that's where Jen and Mark and others have put a lot of effort into making sure that not only do they understand and be able to recognize trafficking, but then when they talk to a potential victim, that they not scare off the victim, because the easiest thing is for a victim to be totally terrified and intimidated if they're faced with someone in a uniform, especially if they're not native to America. So we went forward, and the governor had no qualms about signing it into law, and I'm really very, very pleased about this. So a very big thanks to Jen and everyone else. And I think that there are maybe only a dozen states that don't have adequate laws addressing trafficking. I think I saw on the Polaris website that the governor of Hawaii vetoed it, and I'm not sure why. Maybe they didn't have a good written law. I mean, it's always, you know, the details in the language, but I'm very proud of what we did, and like Mark said, if you notice anything, to shine a light on it. And that's how the people in Litchfield got caught, because a neighbor was suspicious that something was going on in their home. So thank you very much.
I don't know about the rest of you, but I feel, really good about living in New Hampshire. Hampshire. I think that Jennifer, working on this for 5 years with the coalition, they're ahead of the curve here, and a foundation's been laid. We've heard from the experts tonight, and I know when I watched this film, I recognized that I had someone in my life who had been a victim of this and didn't even realize really what to label it. And that really made me want to do something different. And I can see that they've provided a way for us when we do know about these things, we hear about these things, we have a place to go. We can go call the hotline, we can call the coalition, we can be sure that our we can feel confident that our police officers have been trained, we can feel really good about that. And we are very pleased to be even just co-sponsoring this with the coalition and that they asked us. I'd just like to call your attention to a bookmark that our intern for the summer, Katie Mosier up there in the black and white stripe, she organized on our behalf this. And it's an informational, maybe it can help you recognize some signs if you'll take one when you go out. Just thank you for coming, and please find what you can do to make a difference here in New Hampshire. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming tonight, and I'm sure that these incredibly talented filmmakers have inspired you to want to do something, maybe even more than what you are doing. So if you are so inspired, we would encourage you first to go to the coalition website that Jen's already mentioned. We would tell you that you can volunteer at any one of the 14 crisis centers here in the state if you're wanting to work against domestic violence or sexual violence or stalking. You can sign up to receive the coalition website. There's a sign-up sheet on the table. You can make a monetary donation to help the work continue. You can attend awareness events. There's going to be an event put on by students at the New Hampshire Technical Institute on September 17th, and there's some information on the table about that as well. And you will not be able to leave the building without getting one of these cards, which will allow you to maybe process what you've seen tonight and then check off one of the little squares and either give it to somebody tonight or mail it in, and you can, we know we're talking to the choir. If you've been here tonight, you're part of the choir. We thank you for being part of the choir, and we invite you to do even more. Thank you.
Thank you.